if you could go anywhere that you haven't been before, where would you go?
I'm going to have to say heaven, but I'm not ready to go yet.
Yeah. Well, certainly not during this interview, please. Yeah, I think that makes you really special, is just innately who you are, has led to some really, really interesting things that I don't know if you know too much about my channel, but we talk about on there is things that you could do. I'm going to start the series. You're the first one. It's going to be, I love it. Yeah. The series is going to be, I could do that. For people that don't know what to do in retirement, it looms ahead. They've been really busy in their work. Maybe they were the CEO and that's how they got their purpose. But you got to start now preparing for that free time, that time ahead. And some people, it never occurred to them to turn a hobby or interests into something that they could do full time for money or not for money.
So I went to Betty at the paper and I said, hey, if I interview a rock star or a country singer, can I put the interview in the paper? And then I'll go to the concert and do a review. And she was like, yeah. She was really not for this at all.
I'm Gen X Missy. Welcome to Start Now, Retire Happy. And I'm so excited to introduce to you Allen Kiger. And before I brag on you, sir, I'd like to welcome you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, and thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. How are you doing, Missy?
I'm doing really well. I'm so excited to see your face after, what has it been, 30 years?
39, I think. It's been, I'm
only 39 years old. What are you
Okay, 20 years ago.
20 years ago. So Allen and I went to high school together, the great class of 1985, Danville High School.
Best class there is, right in the middle. You think 80s, we're right there. We got the best of both worlds, of the beginning of the 80s and the end of the 80s, and we are adults at the end. Oh.
It was a great time to be alive. I get made fun of a few of my outfits, but yeah, I had big hair, and I loved every second of it. Back to the Future had nothing on us. Yeah.
No. Everything in the 80s was in excess. Everything.
Yeah.
Cars, faster, bigger, louder. That was the 80s. We came back with our attitudes and went back to school. We probably couldn't make it. We'd probably get thrown out.
I know. I think that we would be thrown out by the PC police. We were not. That's for sure. We weren't raised like that. I do remember you from school as the guy that everybody liked. And as I've mentioned to you before, I remember you as the car guy. So after high school, where did cars come into your life and how did that segue? What was the next step?
Well, thank you for the nice compliment there. The car guy, it had a service station. It was a Sunoco, 3 bays. We had a couple wreckers, rollback and regular wrecker. It was not what I chose to do, but it was there, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. So, working at the gas station, pumping gas, meeting people, which is where my dad was a good storyteller, and you see these people coming in, and you meet all kinds of people at a gas station. So, working on cars always considered was secondary, and my education was growing up and meeting these people. But it led me down a road that we'll get to here in a minute, that had I did not have that background, I would have never been able to do where I'm at today.
I think it's weird that after not seeing you for 39 years, you've outed me with that one, 39 years, that the minute I wanted to interview people about what they've done, their interesting hobbies, I thought of you. It must be that from Facebook, I knew some of the stuff you're doing. So I looked at your bio. So Kiger Sunoco, Kiger Signs, Panther Racing, Right for the Republican, Sights and Sounds Promotion. I can't even read all this list. Auto sales, radio host, podcaster. What am I missing? You've done everything. You, sir, are a Renaissance man.
Thank you. Father, that's one of my great accomplishments. That you put that on there. So very proud of my son, Justin, 28. He doesn't think and act like I do. He didn't, I was divorced from his mother, so he didn't have that time to spend with me like I did with my dad. So he's still a free thinker, and I like to think I am. And one of the things you said, you remembered me as the guy that everybody liked. And that was something I always wanted to be, was the person that everybody liked. I don't like conflict. I don't like people not liking me. It really bothers me. So that's helped me a lot in my life. And I didn't know that you were going to say that.
Sorry.
It's helped with everything that I've done, because what you're going to talk about Had I not been that guy, it might only been one review, and it wouldn't have podcast, and it wouldn't have radio personality. Those things wouldn't be under that list.
Yeah, I think that makes you really special, is just innately who you are has led to some really, really interesting things that I don't know if you know too much about my channel, but what we talk about on there is things that you could do. I'm going to start the series. You're the first one. It's going to be,
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. The series is going to be, I could do that. For people that don't know what to do in retirement, it looms ahead. They've been really busy in their work. Maybe they were the CEO and that's how they got their purpose. But you got to start now preparing for that free time, that time ahead. And some people, it never occurred to them to turn a hobby or interests into something that they could do full time for money or not for money. And so I'd like you to start telling me a little bit about the time you were with the Republican, and maybe you're still there, and what you did there, and then maybe what that led to.
Okay, so the Republican newspaper, and a lot of people, I got called out on that. I won't say the name of one of the bands, but they didn't want to do an interview because of the paper called the Republican. We have red states and blue states, and I said, no, it's from like 1847. That's what they called the papers, and actually the people that run it aren't necessarily Republican. And you go down south, and they've got a paper called the Democrat, and they're not necessarily. I said, that's not what it's about. So I'm watching TV. I've always been a person that talks and gets well with people, IndyCar mechanic. So I've had my hands in some things. And when you're an IndyCar mechanic, you get to go places, do nice things, meet people. Starism or whatever you want to call that didn't really affect me. When it boiled down to, and I learned this at an early age, and I learned it with Vince Neil. They were like, hey, it's Vince Neil, he's doing this on our team. I'm like, hey, I'm not really a big Motley Crue fan. Well, I wound up being, when we wound up being friends, but he was a regular guy. He just put on his shoes like I do. So that kind of geared me up for something that I didn't know I was going to do. And I was watching TV, and I kept watching On the Road with Sammy Hagar.
No.
And if you've not seen it, it's on Access TV. And he goes out and he's Sammy Hagar. So obviously he's got all these people that he can go interview. He's played with, but it could be Toby Keith. It could be, Vince Neil, whoever. And he just goes and sits down and has a talk with them. Ted Nugent, they might play a song, talk about their hobbies.
Fun.
And I was like, I can do that. I can do that. I can talk to people. And I kept watching. But I'm like, well, I'm from Danville. How do I do this? So I went to Betty at the paper and I said, hey, if I interview a rock star or a country singer, can I put the interview in the paper? And then I'll go to the concert and do a review. And she was like, yeah. She was really not for this at all. And I said, let me try it once. And I don't know if you remember this from school. No never entered my vocabulary. No was just a challenge. So I finally talked her into it. I had no idea how to get a hold of anybody to interview. So I looked around and got on Facebook, who's coming to town. Right here, Eddie Money's coming to French Lick, Indiana. I'll get a hold of, I don't know who to get a hold of there. I guess I'll start with this manager and work my way from there if I can. I got my foot in the door. Eddie didn't know he was going to be my guinea pig like I am you. And he was a great guy. I got this great interview, and still to this day, 80-some artists later, he's the only one, and they're all nice. They're all nice. Everybody's been great to me. But he's the only one on stage during the concert that thanked me for the interview and said that I helped put, as he called it, butts on seats. So that made me feel really good. So I wrote the review. Now my wife, she helps me, commas and periods and stuff like that. I like to talk, so I have a lot of run-on sentences that she's got to figure out for me. I put it in the paper. I wrote the review. I put it in the paper. Betty loved it. The people read the Republican loved it. She was getting people, hey, when's he going to do it again? When's he going to do it? So she's like, hey, okay, you got the job. Do as many as you want. There was not it needs to be 500 words or it needs to be 1,500 or I don't know what, 2 pictures. Whatever the interview was, got put in there. Whatever the review was, whether it was short, long, got put in there. And it just kept opening doors. Well, several down the line, you've interviewed these people. Well, a publicist might have 20 or 30 people that they're repping.
Yeah.
So now they're coming to you. Hey, so-and-so's coming to town. Would you mind putting them on your thing. Sure. What, I'm not getting paid for this, but I get really good seats. When tickets aren't cheap to concerts,
No.
I get meet and greets, and the meet and greets have turned into friendships with some people. I'll kind of step out of the way here, even though we're on a thing here. Something I'm proud of, but there's 4 guitars, and they're all signed by lots of artists. And I didn't even think about it till I got in with Ted Nugent. So there's 40 people probably missing from there. So those are just little perks. And, they're not, I don't plan on doing anything with them, with selling them. It's just my thing that I like to look at, and anybody that I have out here. So I heard, I'm going to say some ladies, I won't mention their age, and they were sitting around talking one night, and we were down at I'll just go ahead and say we were down at the Fidels in Danville, the little social club across the street from the Krogers. And they said they were talking about their art show on the radio. I said, what do you mean you guys have a show? Well, yeah, we have a show and we talk about art. I'm like, art? What do you mean art? Well, local artists and what they're doing. I'm like, and people listen? I'm like, well, how do I get one of those? And she's like, we need to call this guy and talk to him. So I called Shane, who was in charge of WYRZ 98.9. I'll just get that out there.
Yeah.
And if you listen, wherever, because we're on YouTube, WYRZ.org. You can get it anywhere in the world. I called up Shane. I said, here's my idea. But he goes, I did PR from the paper. Give me a whole list of things to do. I had to do this, had to get a sponsor, had to be this long, had to be this short, just a whole list of stuff. That was on a Thursday. And I called him back Friday. I said, I got everything. When can I start? And he's like, as soon as you want, and he was kind of shocked that he said, I get 20 calls a day of people that ask the same thing you did. And as soon as I give them the list of stuff they need, he goes, that's the end of the story. So to answer your question, that's how that started. And it's led into a lot of cool things. So I
think the gumption is so nice guy with gumption got it happening at the Republican, not a Republican or Democrat, just a newspaper.
Just the Republican newspaper. And I still do some things. I got asked to do a review for KISS, the Eagles on their long ice. So, there's some, KISS tickets are expensive, and they were good seats. Eagles tickets were expensive, like really expensive. But those are the things that I get to do. You take my wife, I drug some friends in, we've made friends. The promotion thing, I don't know if we'll go into that. Tracy McGee had this idea that we should get a group of us together and promote some concerts. So that's Steve Kister.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
Tracy McGee. So those are 3. And then we've got right here in Danville, we've got a guy named Levi Riggs, who is a local singer, but he's had 3 top 40 Billboard hits on the country radio. So the 5 of us got together, and the idea was to promote Levi's music and to promote my radio show. Through that, we decided to have a concert. So we brought 5 concerts to Danville. 2 of them have been charity. So we've raised about $20,000 for local charities. Those 2 were in the Royal Theater, but they were Billy Dean. So, we've got a Grammy winner. He's 2-time ACM, 2-time CMA. So, that's kind of nice. We've brought the Kentucky Headhunters to Danville twice. Again, Grammy winner, CMA, ACM. So we're not just bringing, okay talent to town. You're bringing, Danville. People watching this YouTube, when Missy and I went to school together, Danville had about 4,000 people. We're about 11,000 now. So when you're bringing Grammy-winning artists to your town, and we did it for the love of it. We made a little money, not the ones we did for charity, but we made a little money. But if you figured it up by the hour, I might have made a nickel an hour, except that, it's just for the love of the music.
I did listen to your podcast. Spoiler alert, I'm going to ask you about podcast, but I wanted to listen to your interviewing style, and I thought it would be best if I listen to you interview somebody I didn't know anything about. The Kentucky Headhunters was one of them, and I used to have his name written right here. The interview you did with the guy from the Kentucky Headhunters, who I'd never heard of. I loved that interview. He couldn't have been more. I listened to it, and through your good questioning and his comfortability, I felt like I knew him. He was one of my uncles. He had like a whiskey voice, or I call it a whiskey voice. Do you call it that? Yeah. Like the John Cougar voice, John Mellencamp. Sorry, my bad. I still call him Johnny Cougar, but he doesn't go by that now, right? No, he don't like that. Sorry, my bad. But yeah, I loved it. It was a great job. And so please tell me a little bit about how you got into this podcasting. I guess it's a natural extension of your reviewing,
Yeah, so I was doing the interviews and I air them on the radio. I'm going to go ahead and give my plug. So listeners, anytime, every single Friday from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., we have what they call Fun Friday Nights. This is Eastern time. So wherever you're at in the world, 7 to 10, Fun Friday Nights, 8 o'clock is 80s at 8. 10 o'clock, we got the Rock and Roll Hair Show. That's a whole nother story. But I air my interviews during the 9 o'clock hour. So I had all these, and one of the guys in Levi's band, Paul, that plays bass, said, man, you need to put these on a podcast. He goes, I've been doing this since the 70s. He said, I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but you do a good job of interviewing people. You know how to bring out, I don't talk dirt, we don't talk politics. It's just fun, hobbies, how they got started, what kind of fun do they like to have. And it's that friendly voice, and these people just seem to open up and want to talk. So we took that and we changed the front end and changed the back end and made it a podcast series. So Sights, the letter N, Sounds with Allen, 2 L's and an E, so Allen, Kiger, K-I-G, it's like a tiger with a K, and you can listen to it. So I'm trying to think, you probably listened to, I don't know if you listened to Fred or if you listened to Greg Martin with the Kentucky Headhunters.
Okay, I'm going to do an unprofessional look over here because I wrote it down.
It might have been Richard. They're all good old boys. They're from Kentucky.
It was Fred. I listened to your Fred Young.
Yep,
right?
yep.
And then I also listened to Michael Ramos. Ramos.
Yeah. And he's down in Austin, Texas. He's done a lot of stuff. He's done stuff with Chris Christopherson. I mean, so really, really cool. So tie in the Indiana roots. He's in the Jim Irsay band. So Jim Irsay used the Colds. Jim Irsay's got this collection that's worth, somebody from Saudi Arabia or someplace offered him $1.2 billion for his guitars and drums and all of his cool artifacts. Well, you need to go see this. It was actually just out in LA, January 11th. It's like a traveling circus with all these museum things. And it's stuff you wouldn't see anyway. And it's not just all music. It's some pop culture and sports memorabilia. Well, Michael's the keyboard player for.
Oh.
So imagine if you have all the money in the world and you want to put the band together. So you get the best keyboard player. You've got Carmela Ramsey on fiddle and mandolin and backup singer. Kenny Wayne Shepherd on lead guitar. You've got Bill Vukovic. You've got Kenny Aronoff, who used to be in John Mellencamp's band, on the drums. And then his special guest, there's like the whole band of just great musicians. Yeah. His special guest might be Vince Gill or Ann Wilson, and he'll have 3 or 4 of them. So Jay Giles, with the one we went to, Jay Giles was there, Stephen Stills was there. It's just, I don't know how much money he spent that night, and it's free to the public. So he fills up Lucas Oil Stadium. Everybody gets a $10 coupon to go eat dinner, buy a beer, have a hot dog, whatever they want to do, and you're in for free. And if you're the first so many thousand, you get to park for free, and he's going to give you the best band in the world.
Wow.
It's all for free, and it's unbelievable. And Kenny Wayne Shepherd, they bring out a guitar that he paid $3.8 million from Pink Floyd, and they play Comfortably Numb, just stuff like that, that's not everyday stuff that you get to see. So if it comes around, definitely go see it. So Michael Ramos is in that band. Sorry, I got derailed on but I get to talking about stuff like that. And actually, you said Fred Young. We were texting today. If you look at the Kentucky Headhunters, Fred's the one with the pork chops, the great big long side drummer. And he plays pretty hard. He does a pretty good drum solo. And he's an amazing, I go way back. My dad, Don Stanfield, you probably remember that name. You're behind us in school. We were crazy about the Headhunters when they first came out. Loved their music. Never, ever in a million years did I sit down and say, one of these days, I'm going to interview Fred. I'm going to put on Kentucky, and we're going to be friends. That's not in your vocabulary. But we're friends. We've had them in, they're just great, great people. Fred would love you. He's just a nice, down-to-earth person. And most people in the bands are that way. But I think when you come from the hills of Kentucky and family's been your rooted life, you're dealing with different people than maybe people that have grown up in the city.
Yeah. And at the very least, I find a big difference. I don't know, maybe I'll edit this part out. I do find a difference in people that have never had much struggle financially or otherwise than people who've come up from not a lot and worked really hard to enjoy their music, whatever it is, worked really hard, been nice to other people. It's a different kind of people, and I usually want to be around those folks more often.
Yeah, and the headhunters, I didn't mean to cut you off. As the headhunters say, it only took them 20 years to be an overnight success.
That's awesome. I love that. What I do want to reflect on, though, is, nice guy, worked hard, had some gumption. But what other advice, is there anything you can think of that somebody who's listening to this or watching us would say, okay, I can do that. I can, whether it's about music or IndyCar racing, what can they do to do some of the stuff you've done?
Chase their passion. Whatever their passion is, don't stop. Don't let obstacles. I mean, it doesn't mean break the law, but keep focused and stay with it It doesn't just happen overnight. I watched Sammy Hagar for a couple of years before I could even figure out how to do it, but stay with it. I didn't know I was going to get a radio show. I just said, I didn't know I was going to wind up friends with Fred Young. That wasn't the goal. The goal was to write a good interview and for people to enjoy it. And I like that people do enjoy it. So stay with it. Have the passion. Follow through. Just like you were taught in sports. Did you play volleyball?
When we were junior high, I did. Yeah.
Okay. I think I was looking at that. You remember how they always taught you to follow through. You're shooting the hoop or when you're hitting the ball. It's the same thing when you're chasing down any dream. You have to follow through. It doesn't just happen overnight. There's going to be pitfalls. You're going to get set back. I started to interview somebody that was a comedian, Gallagher. I'll just say his name. He's not with us anymore. He wanted to do an interview. He was coming to town. It was my second interview ever. And Dad was at the station. I had my sign shop to listen to, I remember him smashing the watermelons and, I never even got a question, and it was very vulgar. I've never been talked to like that ever in my life at that time. Had that been the first interview, I don't know if there would have been a second interview. And I finally said, I think I'm going to end this. And he hung up on me. So don't let things, with that, don't let things set you back to where it depresses you and you lose your focus. Whether, you're an author, now you're starting this YouTube adventure. Somebody's young, they're going to be a race car driver. They're going to be a doctor. They're going to be, if somebody's going to be a doctor, you've got friends that are doctors, I'm sure. It's not just that you go to school and you make good grades. It's all the stuff you have to do after school. It's all those late nights. It's all that studying. It's all that prep. It's being away from your family. If you're not willing to dedicate yourself to focus on that, whatever your dream is, you're probably not going to make it. But if you're willing to focus, stay dedicated on your dream, and don't pay attention to the word no. Now, that could be bad in some situations, but when you're focusing on your dreams, no doesn't mean, that doesn't mean do something malicious to do it. Find another way to ask the question. Learn a different answer to get the answer you want. So
what's next for you? I'm feeling like there's got to be a next chapter. Are you looking into writing a book?
Writing a book is something I thought about. I'm not much of a writer, and I don't know how I wound up writing this stuff with the Republican, but I've taken all these interviews. I've saved them all the ones that were in the paper. I've got all the interviews that I did on the radio. I've got those all saved. I would need to have those transcribed and then edited, but maybe a book would be something that I would like to do. Ultimately, if you put your finger down to it, if you could ask me, two things that I want to do for a career, I've talked about the radio show and the interviews. XM radio would be someplace that I would love to go. The other thing, I would like to go to work for Jim Irsay Collection, Jim Irsay Band. I think there's things I could bring along to the table that could continue to make that even bigger and stronger and better. I've talked to the guy, Michael Wexler, that's in charge of that. He likes me. He always calls me up for an interview. The publicist doesn't think I have value, but the guy that's in charge of the thing thinks I have value. So that's something else. Always make sure that people think that you do have value. Mm-hmm. So that's keeping that positive attitude. There's going to be nights, you're down. So if I would say there's a next chapter, that's where it's at, but I'm pretty comfortable where I'm at, but I would like to go in that direction. So
what does retirement look like for you? I don't see you stopping anytime soon.
I don't think I will. Maybe, retirement. If you're, we talked about racing. I worked on sprint cars for years and years. And I'm gonna revert to this person. He'll be 66 years old this March, or 66 or 67. Danny Smith. He's in the Sprint Car Hall of Fame Museum. He's still winning races. He's still winning championships. He has a very low budget. When I say low budget in sprint cars, it's low budget. And he's out beating the young kids. And I keep saying, if he can still do this at 66, 67 and still win, why do people retire? But he's doing what he loves. If you're punching the clock, I got to work a day job at the clerk's office. Retirement there is as soon as I can get out of there, unless something comes along that can. So, if you're doing what you love, why retire? Retire means more time to do what you want to do, more fun. I am blessed that I do work at the clerk's office because I'm off at 4:00. So, when I'm doing these interviews, a lot of times during the afternoon, 4:30, 5:00, because we're, a lot of times we're out of California. So that opens the door to where I can keep doing what I'm doing. And if I want to take off and go to a concert, they give us lots of days off. I work for the government. It's kind of a get me going. I think we get too many days off, because somebody's having to pay for that. That's taxpayers. And I'm not the only one, it's my days off, but you got to pay for that. So, but it's an advantage I have. So it's not my dream job, but it's where I'm at for right now. And that's where God stuck me, and I'll stay there till another door opens.
That is great. Now, as an interview, always added some fun questions. I will ask you, tell me a couple of your favorite movies.
American Graffiti would be right up there at the top.
Yeah.
Cool Hand Luke, love Paul Newman. And if maybe not a movie, but a series, how about The Sopranos?
Yes, I actually never saw it.
Oh,
I know.
Which what started everything. I think without The Sopranos, streaming services wouldn't be as good as they are today. It didn't come out on streaming, but I think it opened the door for a lot of things.
Like binge watching and stuff.
Well, yeah, and the way TV was done, the way you think of TV, produced and acted and directed. So that's my 2 cents.
What about one of your other questions that I liked was, if you could go anywhere that you haven't been before, where would you go?
I'm going to have to say heaven, but I'm not ready to go yet.
Yes. Well, certainly not during this interview, please.
Yeah. But, that's where I'm going to go with that one.
Okay, that's good. Okay, and I do like to ask as my final question, is there anything I should have asked you, since you were the professional? Is there anything I should have asked you that didn't?
I think you keyed in on all the things. Just make sure people chase their dreams, that they're living the life they want to live. If you're, you got to be happy in what you're doing.
You're doing all those things. I think that what you bring the most obvious is a love for what you're doing, a going for your dreams. Like, I'm never going to be an astronaut. I'm never going to be able to be in the NBA, but you're absolutely right with the things that I want to accomplish that just take gumption and not getting depressed. I think that the viewers will really get that from just the little bit we've had time to talk. I'm really impressed with what you've done in 39 years. You have packed more into those 39 than many other people we know. But it's been amazing.
I just always had these dreams and things I wanted to do. And then, like we talked about the Kentucky Headhunters, a lot of this stuff wasn't a dream until it was planted into my head. When I was 18, 25 years old, I didn't say I wanted to do this. It just happened. And I've lived this fantasy life, this dream life, but they weren't the dreams I've had. But now that I'm living this, it makes me have other dreams. And when I'm telling people to dream, I know everybody hasn't had the ability to be brought up like you and I were in a small town with people in the town that are willing to help you, leady ball and good teachers. And, our parents were good people and our community was good. Some people live in inner cities and they don't have that. But I think everybody has a drive deep down inside them. There's a lot of sports athletes and musicians. They've grown up not like we did in poverty-stricken places. They still had that dream. They had that desire. Everybody, I think, has that about something in their life. And if they don't, somebody will just go to work, come home, and love their family, get up and do it again the next day.
And not a thing wrong with that.
No, it takes ditch diggers just as well as it does trash men to make the world go round and round.
Well, I think we should end by just saying I have really, really enjoyed spending this time with you. And I hope it's not another 39 years till we do it again.
I hope not too. Hopefully our paths collide. If I get out to LA, I will make sure to look you up. And
Yeah,
I will get there again sometime. Or if you get this way, let me know. And
I will.
can I plug my show one more time? Sites, the letter N, Sounds with Allen Kiger. That's for the podcast. If you want to listen to some great, cool music, a lot of 80s, a lot of country, a lot of rock and roll. I mean, we might be playing Ozzy and then John Anderson swinging. That's WYRZ 98.9 from 7 until 10 p.m. every Friday night. That's 7 to 10 Eastern time. WYRZ.org, anywhere in the world. So
I cannot wait.
It's been a blast. It's been a blast. If all my interviews were this much fun, they are. That's why I like doing it. But I got switched on me tonight.
No, you got to
be me. So
I know. The hard-hitting questions came from me.
Yeah.
I stole your questions, but I'm going to get good at editing so that I could put up here somewhere your information so everybody can start listening to your listenership is going to go through the roof.
Thank you. And as soon as you get this done, I want to make sure that we share this, and I wish you much success.